Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How are you?
Not a bad start to the Six Nations. There's been slow starts from Ireland in Six Nations past where you kind of leave yourselves a bit snookered, but that's not the case this time. Bonus point wrapped up, good quality performance, injury profile pretty good. All in all, about a perfect day's work.
Yeah, perfect day's work. I think obviously they left some chances behind them, but overall it was a very positive result. And I see you made Wales online as well. Owen, yourself, and John Duggan joined you this time. Did you spot that? No.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, he did. Well, you met it last year and you irked a lot of Welsh people. And
We were right then. We were just a year early.
you were a year early, but yeah, I was checking it out over the weekend, and it was. You knew you were going to make it again anyway, so maybe it's a regular thing every year now that you're going to make this. But you got it right this time. 22-point win, dominant. Look, Ireland could have won by a lot more. Wales were poor, and they were missing a lot of players, a lot of experienced players as well. That's but our results against Wales in Dublin have been pretty positive over the years. So I don't think anyone will get too carried away. We all expected Ireland to be pretty comfortable winners, given where they're at and where Wales are at, and as I said, all the injuries as well. And the start really set the tone, didn't it? It was kind of a continuation on from where they were in November. And I think if you're a player in the group and you get that kind of energy and intensity early on, and that sort of dominance, you start to feel good about yourself, and the team did. And some great tries. I think they probably would have liked to have scored a little bit more in the first half, but I think Conway's his second try was outstanding. Just the teamwork, the execution, and some of the attack throughout the game was sensational. And they've been criticised for the last couple of years, but it was really, really good. Can we get too far ahead of ourselves? I don't know, but given what we saw on Saturday, the signs are really encouraging.
I guess the thing is, if there's going to be a moment that's going to bring you back down to earth, it's probably going to be this weekend against France. So I guess it helps that arguably their most difficult fixture comes this weekend. But on that point, when you talk about, say, like Conway's second try and a couple of those moments of play from Ireland, it's been spoken about. But this idea of different playmakers around the pitch is definitely something that Ireland have kind of followed through with over the last little while, where you do have, say, Mac Hansen coming into the middle. You've obviously got Tadhg Furlong coming out as one of the receivers at times. It does seem as if there is a fluidity in that backline at the moment involving the forwards that opposition teams really struggle to get to grips with.
Yeah, the impressive thing on is their shape in attack and their ability to make short little passes to each other, to engage a defensive line each time. It's if you're a defender against Ireland's attack, when they're going from wide to wide, I think everyone's an option coming forward. And I think that's probably, Mike Catt deserves credit for this because he came under a lot of criticism as well. And a lot of these players have had to change probably a style of play that was so effective under Joe and brought great success. Obviously, it came to a bit of a stuttering halt at the end in 2019. I think they still need to have that in the tank. Against France on Saturday, it could be different. You might have to kick a little bit more and make sure you find territory and like dog it out and be really physical and direct with them at times. But they're not. You only need that for moments in the game. I think they're not going to go back to kicking the ball away a lot. I think they want to play. Times maybe they overplayed a little bit in their own half at the weekend, and that's risky. That would be risky in Paris, but they're brave and they're excited by what they're doing. And if you look at the impact of the back row and the handling skills of Tadhg Furlong as well, and then the front row, the carrying options. Tadhg Furlong gave a little wraparound pass to Sexton in the first half. It was incredible. So I think they're getting a lot of the attack right, and they're getting it right on the game line. And their execution is really, really outstanding. But, you're going to get a different sort of pressure now on Saturday. So they'll certainly look back and There was occasions where they needed to be that bit ruthless. I'd love to see them all, have been more effective. But look, it was against a poor Welsh side, but they'll be full of confidence and really believe that they can go to Paris.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Like the November internationals were great in that it injected a lot of confidence to the team. The win at the end of last season's Six Nations was kind of the start of this, but we haven't yet really played a team like this French team in that run. Like the New Zealanders are at the end of a very long season. They're away from home. It's a full house for us. This is it now. This is us away against a team who are firing on all cylinders. Had a great little warm up at the weekend. Nice little, took a few shots, but nothing in any way significant. And this is the measure now, and it's a good starting point, because it's here, it's summer in New Zealand, and then it's next year's Six Nations, and then it's the World Cup. But it kind of starts properly this weekend. So, what are your fears about this French team? What they might be able to do to us? Did we box kick a little bit too much, or the box kick's not accurate enough, or is everything about as good as it can be?
No, everything's not as good as it can be. I think you make a valid point about the opposition. I think France and Ireland were outstanding against New Zealand, and a lot of the commentators and people were saying, well, New Zealand are on the end of a long season and they're not the New Zealand of old. But the way Ireland played and the way France played against them, and rightly, I think, so both sides kind of sent a message out that they were, probably up there with the best teams in the world at the end of in November. I think the worry with France is, and this is a worry I have with Ireland, and maybe they'll answer this worry and concern at the weekend, is can they cope with the physicality and power that the French will bring? England, obviously, when the Vunipolos were there, and you had Launchbury and Johnny Hill and Itoje and Courtney Laws and all these guys, they've caused us problems in the last couple of seasons with power and the physicality. I watched the French against Italy yesterday, and look, they were quite rusty, and it wasn't their best performance either. There's a lot of room for improvement there, but one of the things that you're going to get against France on Saturday is a real physical power. They have a lot of big ball carriers, and they're quite similar, I think, in their attack to the way Ireland are playing. But Marchand, the hooker, Antonio, the prop, Willems, Gelange, Aldred, you can start rattling off their ball carriers as well, and the impacts they have, and they get over the gain line. They're very aggressive counter-rucking. So that's where the test is going to be. Can Ireland get their maul right? Will their scrum be rock solid? And if they have a platform to play, I believe they can, be relentless. And the idea against this French side is to try and get multiple phases and hope that you will get some gaps and holes in their defensive line. Easier said than done. If Ireland are beaten by France at the weekend, on your point, Jared, does that mean they're suddenly a bad side and this is the first real test? No, it doesn't, because I think they've been incredibly consistent in those 3 games in November and showed great signs on Saturday as well at times. So it's always going to be a difficult game. France are on a high, and I don't know if there's not going to be a lot in it. If you go back 2 years ago to the game that, well, it's only a year and a half when that Six Nations was delayed till October and Ireland lost 35-27. France came up with some really big kind of X-factor moments from individuals who broke Ireland down. And that's what you can't let happen on Saturday in Paris. Is you can't let some of their players just produce some individual brilliance and score these tries and kind of really take the sting out of Ireland's pressure and intensity that they want to bring. So, look, there's a lot of questions. Some people think they're the 2 best, well, they're certainly the 2 best teams in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, and it should be a cracker. It's a real test for Ireland.
It'll be the last time Ireland play France away before potentially playing France away in the World Cup as well. Like, when you talk about the power game that France are going to bring to proceedings at the weekend, how will that impact Andy Farrell's team selection this week? Like, we had one commenter in earlier on saying that Ian Henderson should definitely be in the mix this weekend.
Yeah, there's not they're probably a fairly full bill of health, I suppose, bar Henderson and Henshaw, Keith Earls. But otherwise, everyone's fit. If Henderson's available, I think he will come back onto the bench because he probably brings that bit of physicality, experience. And you're going to be coming up against Waukee and Willemse in the second row, who are big physical players. I think Willemse is the one that kind of does a lot of unseen damage in mauls and at the breakdown and with some of his carries. James Ryan and Ty Byrne, they'll have to be really on their game. And I think our front row, their physicality, and they're probably Porter and Furlong and Kelleher, they're outstanding players, and I think they're playing really well at the moment. And their tackle reload and their impact tackles on the opposition are significant. So you've got to stop France a little bit on the gain line and stop that power as much as you can. And I think probably, again, all this stuff is easier said than done, but just trying to be intelligent with your possession, where you play the game, and trying to hold on to the ball for long periods. The idea will be to try and frustrate France. If you allow Dupont into Mac and you look at Villiers, the winger, if they get time and space, they can hurt any opposition. And when the crowd get behind France in Paris, and they really believe again, they really believe that this is their year. So it's about managing the tempo of the game as well for Ireland. And that's going to be a challenge. But look, I think they're in really good shape going over there. And Henderson, getting Henshaw maybe back in the bench as well would be a big call, because he's a big game player and he's powerful, he's aggressive. And so I think Henshaw and Henderson, if they're fit and available, will come back into that 23.
Straight to the bench, but not the team?
I don't think he goes near the team. Bundy Aki was brilliant at the weekend. Not just in his carries. I think he carried the ball 18 times, but just with some of the touches, the passing, he seems to be really kind of enjoying himself. He's not been used as a battering ram.
Yeah.
And I think, it'd be a very harsh call on him, because I think, there's nothing between them anyway. I would have picked Henshaw last week leading into the game because of the Henshaw Ringrose access, but we're very lucky to have him. So I don't think they come into the team. Henderson's been out for a while, and Diop's kind of put him straight into the team to start. I think you saw last year in Cardiff, when Henshaw came off the bench, when Henderson came off the bench, he came up with 2 big turnovers. So he has that impact in him as well. So I wouldn't put him straight into the team, no. But who knows?
Yeah, look, there were some selection surprises when the team was named last week, but you would expect he's been consistent week to week generally, where you get in, you don't get out unless you've done something really bad, or and even then he's backed people to try and find form when he's needed to, like James Lowe in the past. Who was your man of the match?
I was thinking about this at the weekend. I think Ty Byrne was brilliant again. Obviously, he dirtied his bib a little bit with the intercept, but just the carries and turnovers and little deft passes, he was brilliant. Bundy Aki was right up there as well. Furlong. I think Bundy Aki. I just think his contribution was brilliant. You're splitting hairs with a couple of them. The back row, Doris, Van der Fleer, Conan were excellent as well. High performance right across the team, and a very dominant performance. So I'd probably go Bundy Aki.
Matt Canson obviously got it on TV during the live commentary of it all. I mean, his kind of start to life in Ireland jersey was pretty spectacular. I mean, it was those early moments as well. He offers a different dimension, doesn't he? It's brilliant to have that, and he played it at fly half in underage, and very comfortable being, that footballer and being a second receiver, and for the Aki try, the way they kept going one way in towards the post and swept back around, he gives a different dimension to the attack to have someone who's really comfortable on the ball, and he had a brilliant performance as well. Really good footballer, intelligence in his decision making. The time Porter turned the ball over, and just the reaction for Ringrose try was sublime from that Ireland side. And Hansen, the way he put pace onto the ball
and his reaction was superb. So he had a big game as well, and it's great to see for your first cap.
He's only 24, he's 23 now, he's 24 next month as well. So, a long future ahead of him and many caps to come too. Briefly to talk about England, so it looks like the head coach is getting hammered for making a change with 10-15 minutes left to go that the Harlequins coach seems to think was premeditated. But it's not really that unusual for you to take off your out half to put on a very experienced out half to try and close out a game. So is Eddie Jones getting hammered here because he's Eddie Jones, or is he getting hammered?
Yeah.
What's going on?
He's getting hammered because he's Eddie Jones. I think bringing George Ford on wasn't the reason why England lost the game. I thought at the time they were 17-10 up. It was a game with very tight margins. Scores were hard to come by, and Ford coming on was the right idea at the time. It's easy to go and blame, the Marcus Smith coming off that they lost the game. I think what lost England the game was their inability to execute when they got into the Scottish half. They kicked the ball away too much, and their discipline really let them down in that second half. I think Itoje, who, I was on commentary, he has so many big impacts in the game, in stifling the opposition, turning them over, breaking up mauls, being a nuisance at the breakdown. He gave away 3-4 penalties in that second half on Saturday, really crucial ones. And I think that's what cost him. The crossfield kick from the scrum from Finn Russell was outstanding. England were much too narrow in defence. Van der Merwe gets it, and then they come straight back across the field with a crossfield kick again. I'm just not sure how you don't, from a defensive point of view, not have a back rower or a winger on that side of the field that you're exposing your front row with. Will Stewart was on the field, the tight head, Joe Marler, and then Luke Cowan-Dickey. How you can allow your front row to be that exposed but to come back for a crossfield kick again. So they were naive, and they had enough of possession to win the game. I don't think Marcus Smith coming off the field cost England the game. I think that's not the reason they lost the game.
Scotland aren't bad anymore. Maybe that's one of the things that's going on here as well.
No, they're confident. Yeah, Scotland are confident, and they believed going into the game. So I think, Scotland, the biggest problem with Scotland over the years is probably their inconsistency, and sometimes their power up front in that front five. And they did struggle at times in the game, but they come up with that brilliant Ben White try, and that was from Darcy Graham. Outstanding footwork and attack in the first half. They didn't really have any sustainable period of pressure in that England 22, and they come up with the first try of the game. It's a different England team, Ger. Let's be honest. There's no Vunipolas there. Johnny Hill isn't at there. Courtney Laws, Launchbury.
They'll get all those back. They'll get all the.
They will, yes.
And Tuilagi just played at the weekend as well.
Yeah, they can be a different team. Johnny May is a world-class winger. And when you have Elliot Daly in the centre, who's a winger full-back, he's not a centre.
Let's not worry about England. I think that's my takeaway from this is a lot of players got some extra game time. That next generation aren't good enough yet to be the Scotland team playing at the absolute limit of their powers in a big Calcutta Cup game in Edinburgh. This is probably good for England in the long run.
Possibly. It just depends whether Eddie Jones, that pressure will rank up more on him, because there's a certain probably group in the media who are picking and trying to expose him a little bit. Some people divided opinion on him. A lot of staff have moved on the last couple of years. Obviously, the height of the World Cup, getting to that final, and the way England were playing, they were, on a real high. But very poor Six Nations last year. I don't know if he can afford another really poor Six Nations. I know people will say it's a World Cup cycle, and in Ireland, we always peak at the wrong time. We hear that so much right up to the World Cup. But I just don't know if that pressure will really mount if they have a really poor Six Nations again. And I just thought on Saturday it would have been a significant win for him, with a lot of players injured and a lot of kind of new faces in his group and his squad. And he keeps talking about World Cups, and maybe they're right. But I just think the pressure will kind of mount a little bit more on him if they don't start getting results. They go to Italy next week, and I'm sure they'll win that game, and then they've got Wales and Scotland, or Wales and Ireland. So it depends. It depends what happens in the next few weeks. But I think there is pressure on Eddie Jones now, and some people were displeased at that, the tactics at the weekend. But it's down to the players, as I said. Toje, what a wonderful player at times, but just give away some really poor penalties and made it easy for Scotland.
Okay. We'll let you go. Alan, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Alan Quinlan there from the Red 78 podcast. You can get that on the Rugby channel on YouTube, or of course you can subscribe to the Red 78 podcast, and there'll be a new episode dropping in the next couple of days. Right. Only 400 days till we lose a World Cup quarter-final, says Andrew Sweeney on YouTube. I mean, the likelihood is that we will lose a World Cup quarter-final because we'll be up against France in France or the All Blacks. That's what's going to happen. So we will be underdogs for a World Cup quarter-final, no matter how well we play to get there. And that's assuming that we beat Scotland,
who are looking pretty good at the moment.
Yeah.
They also have their own World Cup troubles to a point as well.
Will they play Ireland in the World Cup and we beat them without like worrying about it? Even when we're playing really badly, we still somehow manage to duff them up.
Yeah, it's a bad draw.